Hello, and thank you for joining to another part of our self-care during COVID workshop series. I am Kristen, one of the psychologists at the University Counseling Services at University of Oregon, and I'm going to be presenting today on the topic of slowing down, letting go, and being present in a COVID world. So before we dive in and get started, just to offer a quick disclaimer that although this workshop may be beneficial to the well-being of participants and is presented by a staff therapist, this workshop is not considered to be counseling, therapy, or treatment. So slowing down and being present, why it's difficult and why it's important is where we're going to start today. So why it's difficult during a pandemic, especially hard to be able to slow down, right? We're all under increased stress and uncertainty. We're mourning the past, trying to stay safe in the present, worried about the future, right? And these strong emotions that we might be feeling are often perpetuated by our thinking, right? Getting caught up in the past or worrying about the future. Right? What we might notice during these times of higher stress is that there's this increased sense of being on autopilot, right? Where we're really not being able to slow down and be present and focus on what's happening in the moment. We might be experiencing racing thoughts, moving into problem solving versus being able to slow down and just acknowledge what's happening, right? And we might be making more attempts to control the uncontrollable. So slowing down and being present, right? What is it? Essentially, it's sort of encompassed by this term mindfulness. And it's a term that a lot of folks may have heard of, some folks may have not heard of, but mindfulness, what it is the intentional act of paying attention on purpose and non-judgmentally to what is occurring both internally and externally in the moment. Right? It's really just about observing and noticing what's happening without attempting to change it or fix it or get rid of it or to try and control it in some other way. Right? It's an awareness of both the pleasant and comfortable experiences that we're having, as well as the unpleasant and uncomfortable, right? And again, that's emotion, thoughts, feelings, experiences, sensations. Right? And mindfulness can be a formal practice. A lot of folks, I'm sure, have heard of meditation, or it can be informal, right? Just noticing how it feels to brush your teeth in the morning, or noticing where your body is feeling tense, or what emotions are coming up, or what thoughts you're having. And of course, why it's important, right? And again, especially during this time, in developing a mindfulness practice can be helpful throughout many times in life, but particularly during times of high stress, like going through this current pandemic that we're in, right? Incorporating mindfulness can help reduce some of that stress and some of that anxiety. It can help reduce some of that chatter in our minds, all that noise that we're creating that often, again, happens during times of higher stress and higher uncertainty. Right? And it helps us let go of what we can't control while also being more aware of what we can control and being able to focus our energy on those things rather than trying to control the uncontrollable. And through an extended mindfulness practice, we can learn to let go. Right? And an important part of this, I think, why it's important, especially during these difficult times, is that it also allows us to focus and enjoy some of the positive things that are occurring in our everyday lives. Right? With that increased stress that we experience, our brains will focus on the negative as a form of safety and protection, right? And mindfulness can help us to also be more aware of the positive, pleasurable experiences that happen in our lives. Mindfulness practice, starting slow and simple, right? And that's what we're going to be doing today in this workshop, right? We're going to be focusing on different mindfulness practices to incorporate into your everyday life, right? With the stress and chaos that is happening during this current time, starting simple and slow and smaller might make it easier to really get into that routine and create a habit of engaging in mindfulness more regularly. I encourage everyone to come in with an open mind and to just take what might work for them and really being able to start slow and simple. And if it feels like it's something that's been helpful for you, maybe working your way into a more intensive and longer term practice. So there's lots of classes and online resources for cultivating more of these intensive ongoing practices. And so what we're going to be focusing on today is really just kind of dipping our toes in the water of maybe seeing how mindfulness could fit into your life in ways that feel like it could be helpful and maybe not cause more stress in the meantime. So this here is just a list of simple ways to get present, right? I think oftentimes when folks think of a mindfulness practice, the image that comes to mind, right, is sitting cross-legged and in a Zen type state for hours on end, right? And the reality is we can really just have a couple minutes or a couple seconds during our day to get present, right? And so these are just a few examples of them. One way to help get present, to help get out of the chatter of our minds and to be focused on what's just naturally occurring, is to focus on our senses. Our senses are a great way to help ground ourselves, right? So maybe in times of higher stress or higher anxiety, or just in general, right? Pause and notice. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you tasting, smelling, textures that you can touch around you, right? Again, getting out of your head a little bit and using senses as a way to do that. And the time commitment can be small, right? 30 seconds to a minute can help get you present, right? Of course, you're welcome to do this process much longer than that if that's helpful, or continue the practice throughout the day, right? Using your breath as a way to be mindful and get present and slow down can be quite helpful. Right? One of the amazing things about the breath, and the most useful things, is that it's always with us, right? We don't have to seek out some external thing to help us to get present. Our breath is that anchor that we have to help ground ourselves, to sustain our lives. And the time commitment can be as little as 10 seconds, right? To just take a single deep breath. Notice that sensation of the air going into your nostrils, your lungs filling up, right? And what sensations you might notice as you exhale, right? And of course, you can, similar with the five senses, practice that as many times as you would like, but really just one 5-10 second moment is a way to just get present, right? And to ground yourself. A body scan is another great way to help get present. This one is a bit more of a time commitment, a bit more intensive, but it really can be anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour. And really what it is again, it's getting out of your head and getting into your body a little bit, right? So what a body scan can do is you can do it sitting up or lying down and closing your eyes and slowly scanning your body from head to toe, right? Some folks like to kind of go in a circle, starting with your head and maybe going down the left side of your body and then up the right side, right? Some folks tend to go back and forth to the left and right side. And really it's just bringing your awareness to each part of your body without judging it, without trying to change it, right? And this one can be a bit more challenging to stay focused, to stay present for a longer period of time. It often takes a lot of practice. And a really helpful thing that tends to be folks find beneficial for the body scan is to have a guided practice, at least to get started. And YouTube can be a great resource for this. I always recommend finding a voice in a time frame that fits for you, that feels soothing, that you feel like you can focus in on. Um, right? And a fourth way, to simple way to get present, is just to pause and check in with yourself, right? Like I mentioned earlier, during times of higher stress, we can notice ourselves, or not even notice ourselves, being on autopilot, right? Where we're just moving through the day and we're pushing through and we're powering through. And we don't really give ourselves the space to just check in and ask, how are we doing, right? What's happening, right? And this, again, time commitment is so short. Simply stop, right? So stop, take a breath, notice your feelings, and continue to move on, right? And with that, proceed. It could be proceeding in the ways that you've already been proceeding, or it could be that your course might need to change for a moment if you observe your feelings and you're noticing what's happening and you're noticing that you might need something different, right? And being able to check in with yourselves, right, gives us a bit more power and really that control piece in a way that we can actually control, right, with that proceeding and what's going to be most helpful. Another great part about mindfulness is that we can do what we're already doing and just do it a little bit more mindfully, right? Again, formal practices, more intensive practices can have really huge benefits. And a great way to get started is just to be more mindful about what you're already doing, right? While you're eating, pay attention to the smell, taste, the look of your food. For some folks, it's doing this for a whole meal. For other folks, it might just be that first sip of coffee in the morning, or the cup of tea that you're drinking, or the piece of chocolate that you're eating. And really, even just for that one bite or that one sip, really being able to slow down and focus and notice on what you're consuming and what you're putting into your body. Right. Listening to music, again, can be a great way to slow down and be more mindful, right? Can be focusing on the songs or listening specifically to the voice or an instrument, right? I know for me, oftentimes I can get into a space where I'm like, oh, I really want to listen to that song. And I put it on and it's halfway through, and I'm like, shoot, I wanted to listen to that song, right? And I have to restart it because our minds go elsewhere so frequently, right? So being able to slow down and focus on a full song or part of a song. Mindful walking, right? This can be lifting up your feet, moving it, placing it back down on the ground. What are your arms doing? What are you noticing your joints are doing? Where are you looking? Right. So, again, these things that we're already doing, it can even be stretching your body and really being able to pay attention to what our muscles are doing and what's happening. Right. Again, getting out of our head a little bit and more into our bodies being present. Right. Mindfulness of the weather, right? At the time that I'm recording this, we're moving into spring. The weather's starting to warm up, right? And again, Eugene can be a great place for this, or in Oregon in general, because, right, it can be raining out one moment and then sunny the next. Sometimes it's windy, right? And really just being able to step outside, go outside for a moment and feel, what is the temperature, right? What does the rain sound like? What are the trees sounding like, right? And just being able to notice and label some of those things can help with that mindfulness. Okay. And then mindfulness of daily activities, right? So we do hundreds of different things all of the time throughout the day, whether that's just picking up a pen, right? Writing something down, to something that takes a little bit longer, like taking a shower or driving, right? We do a lot that we don't notice that we're doing because we end up on autopilot, right? Where we're driving or biking somewhere and we just get there, right? And we don't remember buckling the seatbelt or putting the car in reverse or stopping at that stop sign, right? So being more aware of that. We all do this, or at least many of us do this, is the mindful scrolling on the phone, right? Being able to take, even if it's just 30 seconds, where you're actually slowing down and noticing what you're doing on your phone. What are those posts that you might be reading on social media? Looking at an Instagram photo and being able to really look at all of the different parts and label the colors, right? Just again, slowing down a little bit. We move in a very fast world, and sometimes slowing down can be quite helpful to center ourselves and to let go. Okay, so we've talked about a few different ways to get present, some simple mindfulness practices to move into your life. Some important considerations as you're practicing this, right? One, no multitasking, right? So focusing mindfulness is really paying attention on purpose, non-judgmentally, to one thing at a time, right? If we're multitasking, we can't really focus and pay attention to what's happening. And focus on intentionality. What is the purpose of slowing down for you, right? And this one I think is really important, that this is not a practice that comes easy, that we can click our heels and all of a sudden we're present and mindful all the time. Our minds will drift to something else. We will forget to pay attention to that song or to eat that meal mindfully or to notice what's happening. It will happen, right? The practice is being able to notice when our mind drifts to something else, when we get caught up in our thoughts, and gently bringing yourself back to the moment, right? Refocusing your attention to the here and now, right? And this last one, super important. Non-judgment is a part of mindfulness. So don't judge yourself if it doesn't go perfectly the first, that is meant to mean time, the first time, right? And so even in this error, right? Not judging that, right? Being able to notice that it's existing and to let it go. Okay. So now I want to introduce a brief mindfulness practice. It's a very common practice for mindfulness. And it's what it's called as a 3-minute breathing space exercise. So we're going to pause for a second. I'm going to pause for a second to center myself. And then I'm going to walk through a guided mindfulness practice with you. And the purpose of this exercise is really just to step out of that automatic pilot, that automatic mode, and reconnect with the present. Okay. All right. So first, find a comfortable upright position and either close your eyes or focus on a spot in front of you. And now take a deep breath to bring yourself into the present moment. Just noticing whatever you are experiencing right now. Notice any sensations, be they of discomfort or tension. Notice your feet on the ground. Or if you're sitting, notice whatever you are sitting on. Notice the clothes against your body and the air against your skin. And now, notice whatever is in your mind. Whatever thoughts are there, as best you can, just observe your thoughts as they are in your mind right now. And now notice whatever you are feeling emotionally. Don't try to change it or fix it. Just notice how it is you are feeling right now in this moment. And now bring your attention to your breath. Just noticing the rise and fall of your stomach as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Notice the cool air flowing in through your nose as you inhale and the warm air as you exhale. As you breathe in and breathe out. If you find your mind wandering away from your breath, simply bring it back to noticing each breath in and out as they follow one after the other. And now, allow your awareness to expand, to encompass your breath, moving in, moving out, moving through your body, bringing your awareness to your thinking and whatever you are feeling emotionally right now. Gently broaden this awareness to notice the whole experience, holding everything in your awareness. Now bring your attention back to the room. Open your eyes if they're closed. Notice what you can see. Notice what you can hear. Push your feet into the ground and have a stretch. Notice yourself stretching. and thank yourself for giving yourself this moment to be present. Right. So now that we've gone through more of a formal mindfulness practice, it can be helpful to just take a moment to reflect on what that was like for you, right? And whether this is something you can incorporate into your practice, right? Again, that gently finding simple ways to be more present. And really, what we did there was just focus on our breathing, focus on our internal experiences, focus on our whole experience, and then kind of expand that outward, right? So, before we wrap up the workshop today, I do want to touch on the concept of letting go, right? Something that can be quite challenging to do, again, especially during these more stressful times, right? So, let's talk control, right? We talk about letting go and not trying to control things, right? But I do think it's important to point out that control is not always a bad thing, right? Where it becomes problematic is when we're trying to control these things that we can't control, right? Feeling out of control can be scary, and many of us are feeling out of control related to the current pandemic, right? So, what happens is we try to find that sense of control in whatever way we can, right? And that control can sometimes look like, or that illusion of control where we're just trying to grasp at any sense of control can look at like worry, rumination, ineffective problem solving, right? We think we're controlling if we just worry about it enough or we think about it enough, right? And the reality is that doesn't always help with our control, right? So what I ask of you and encourage is to really, again, slow down and notice what is in your control, what is not in your control, right? And being able to let go of what's not in your control and be able to act in ways that are helpful for you where you can have some control, right? And acceptance and change, right? These are really, again, some of that letting go piece, right? Acceptance is seeing things as they are in the moment rather than you want to see them or your worst interpretation of what they could be, right? It's taking things as they come, right? And then that letting go is intentionally releasing control in our allowing ourselves to fully participate in our experiences, right? And that change piece, right, is where we can identify things that aren't going well, that are in our control. What are some of the things we can do to make them different for us, right? And so here's just a list of our workshop series. We'll have videos up for all of these at some point. So feel free to look around our website and on our YouTube to figure out which ones could be helpful for you and give yourself some space to slow down a little bit and focus on taking care of yourself. Right. So, with that, be well, take care of yourself, and give yourself some credit for taking the time to be here today.